What do the Nikon Z6 II, the Pentax K1 II, the OM System OM5 and the Canon 5D Mark IV have in common? They were all lambasted for being lackluster updates of their predecessors. So are camera makers trying to sell you minor upgrades for big money, or is there another side to the story? Let's find out. My name is Thomas Eisl. I'm a professional photographer from Vienna, Austria. Every time a new camera seems like a lackluster upgrade, it is very rarely a blatant cash grab by the manufacturer. The real problem is that cameras have gotten so good that it is hard to improve them. Combine that with vague and sometimes even technically impossible expectations by photographers, and you got all ingredients to fuel uneducated internet rage. So it is about time for a more realistic perspective on new camera releases. 50 years ago, it was a testament to a product's quality and overall design when it remained in production unchanged for a long period. Take the Nikon F3 for example. Released in 1980, this professional SLR remained in production until 2001. When Nikon finally retired the model after 21 years, at least 750,000 bodies had been sold. Even if the F3 would still be in production today, it would be a great camera to purchase and work with. But with digital photography, everything is now completely different. Every camera is a huge improvement over the last one, and old digital cameras are just the worst. No, of course not. Although camera sensors have evolved over time, even an old digital camera is not that much worse when it comes to dynamic range, noise and resolving power. You'll be surprised how little spec sheet differences matter in practice. I've already dedicated various videos to this on my channel and will continue to do so, as old digital cameras are way better than their reputation. When it comes to autofocus, exposure metering and other performance parameters, the differences are even less significant in practice. For example, the Nikon D2H had a perfectly usable AF and a high drive speed for capturing fast action reliably, all the way back in 2003. Circling back to consumer perception, compared to 50 years ago, a lot has changed. When manufacturer A releases fewer models than manufacturer B, it seems to be common internet wisdom that A is dead, in serious trouble, or at least running out of ideas. Manufacturers are therefore more or less forced to release new products, even though the old ones are still perfectly fine. To make things even worse, manufacturers are dealing with the problem of diminishing returns when it comes to camera development. For example, in order to improve a camera like the D5, an exorbitant amount of money for development is needed, with no guarantee that the improvements will be significant enough to convince new buyers. So even if the engineers manage to improve an already near-perfect model, the new camera will not really be all that different. That is exactly what happened in case of the D6. Like the D5, it still is a lightning fast camera, it still has incredible high ISO performance, and it still is indestructible. On top of that, the autofocus was improved significantly, but no one really took note of that, as the D5 was already practically infallible. So people were all over the place claiming that the D6 was a lackluster upgrade. The camera did not even get a proper review on major sites, as it probably would not have generated enough clicks, although it is one of the best cameras of our time, even today. So it is important to understand that major breakthroughs in physical engineering are far less likely to happen, and if they do happen, they often go relatively unnoticed. Another great example for that is the Pentax K1 II. Although the camera uses the same sensor of the previous model, the addition of a new so-called accelerator unit improves the ultra-high ISO performance drastically, delivering better color reproduction and lowering image noise. This new signal pre-processing was a real breakthrough, as it improved on what was and still is the industry-leading low-light performance of the K1 Mark I. The best thing was that Pentax even offered to upgrade old K1 cameras for a certain period. I had a K1 Mark II for a while, and believe me, what Pentax achieved with this model is remarkable. However, the camera received a lot of flack, as most people did not understand the technology and framed the camera as a lackluster cash grab. So always keep the Pareto principle in mind. An improvement of 20% requires 80% of total development resources and is neither needed nor noticed by 80% of all users. We photographers are used to receiving free firmware updates for our cameras. I mean, we are entitled to them as we have purchased the camera already. Of course, Canon should provide updates for a 10-year-old camera, just like Adobe provides updates for a 10-year-old Photoshop copy, right? Oh wait, Adobe does not do that. Neither do we expect software companies to do that, as software development is not free. I think it probably won't come as a surprise to anyone that software development for cameras is not free as well, but we photographers are not willing to pay for firmware updates, even if they add new features. We expect that to be part of the deal. Because of that, manufacturers only have 3 options. Option number 1. They can price their cameras higher to cover the costs of future updates. You'll see this strategy usually with higher-end cameras. Option number 2 is to cut production costs. I personally would not appreciate this course of action, as there is always some sort of trade-off in terms of build quality. And last but not least, there is option number 3, and that is producing a model in smaller quantities, and after the batch is sold, releasing a practically identical model but with improved software. Every manufacturer has a different approach, which can also vary from camera to camera in their lineup. It is just important to not get disgruntled when a seemingly minor update requires you to purchase a new camera. You can always stick with what you already have if you do not want to pay for that. The new camera and new software dilemmas are fundamentally manufacturer concerns, not consumer concerns. So why should we even think about those? First and foremost, it helps us to see through the marketing hype that surrounds every camera release. It always sounds like the new model is now fundamentally different, and of course, manufacturers have to do that. But in reality, even breakthrough technologies offer only very limited practical benefits, as our cameras are already highly capable. Second, it helps us to avoid frustration when it looks like our favorite camera manufacturer released a seemingly lackluster new model, because in reality, they have already designed a camera years ago that was so good that there is only very little to improve. And third, it helps us to focus on the most important task: truly mastering the camera we already own and advancing our photography skills. That is how I stopped worrying and learned to love my camera. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider subscribing and following me on other social media. See you next time.